Now, while Prime Minister Boris Johnson fights to remain in office, there are several issues requiring urgent attention, from soaring cost of living prices to protests over rising cost of fuel. There are several things that the British public are unhappy about. It's a culmination of crises, which has created a perfect storm for the harried Johnson. Let's look at the most pressing issues plaguing the country. Now, the biggest issue is the growing cost of living. Everything is getting expensive, from fuel to butter. A new report has found that over 2 million households missed a bill payment every month this year as they struggle to keep their head above water. In June, an estimated 2.1 million households missed or defaulted on at least one mortgage, rent, loan, credit card or bill. According to the Consumer Champions Monthly Insight Tracker, another report by the Resolution Foundation think tank says that many families, they've been unable to build up the savings that they need to cope with the growing prices this year. The report also noted that the typical incomes of poorest fifth of the population did not increase between 2005 to 2020, despite GDP per person going up by 12% during the same period. Petrol prices are also breaking records and have triggered a wave of protests across the country. Petrol hit an all-time high of $2.32 a litre, according to data from the RAC Motoring Organisation. This surge is spanning the fastest UK inflation rate in years. According to Bloomberg, the UK now has the most expensive fuel of any of Europe's 5 largest economies. The fuel protests this week come after railway union workers. They went on a strike last week demanding pay rise and better working conditions. Travel was disrupted as well and is once again set to be disrupted after British Airways cancelled 1,500 flights, mostly for July. The wave of cancellations made over the past weeks will affect thousands, tens of thousands hoping to jet off this summer from Heathrow and Gatwick. The industry has been struggling with staff shortages as demand for air travel rebounds. The cancellations come as hundreds of British Airways check-in staff at Heathrow are deciding on strike dates which could further affect the peak summer school holiday travel period. Many jobs in the aviation industry were lost during the course of the COVID pandemic, and recruiting enough staff in time to deal with the surge in demand for travel has proven difficult for airlines. Gatwick has already said that it would be reducing the number of flights during the summer because of its staff shortages before the airport slots amnesty was announced. Now, for more insights on this, we're being joined by Andrew Whitehead from London, writer and senior journalist. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. Boris Johnson has been accused of deception yet again. Trouble, distrust continue to mount. What is your assessment of the current political crisis?
It's a very deep crisis for him, by far the worst he's had in his 2.5 years as Prime Minister. Boris Johnson himself is defiant. Apparently he's told a colleague that it'll take a flamethrower to get him out of 10 Downing Street. But my own feeling is that we're now in the final weeks and perhaps the final days of his time as Prime Minister. He's clearly lost the confidence of his parliamentary party. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, was the most senior person in government after the Prime Minister. He's gone. The Health Secretary is gone. We've had about 6 or 8 more junior level resignations in government, including 1 or 2 in the past hour or two. And I think the signs are that the mood has turned definitively against Boris Johnson because he is not seen to be a man of perceived integrity.
Right. Now, as I mentioned, there are several issues that require urgent attention. Rising cost of living, fuel. What does this mean for the administration and the country on a whole? And how do you see a way out of this crisis?
Well, there isn't much governing going on at the moment. The political crisis within the government is so deep that everybody is preoccupied about, who is going to do what job and is Boris Johnson going to survive. So there is a cost of living crisis. Inflation here is at 9%, which is at its highest for more than 30 years. There have been a wave of strikes as organised workers want wage increases to match the increase in prices. And the government has taken some moves. It's introducing this week what is in effect a reduction in taxation to try and ease the burden of the cost of living crisis, but there is no sustained policy at the moment because the government doesn't have the thinking space to develop a policy. It's all about survival just at the moment.
You're absolutely right. And also another pertinent question here, if Boris Johnson is ousted, as you say, he remains defiant, but if he is ousted, who do you think could succeed Johnson?
It's very difficult to say, and part of the feeling is that it may well be somebody who has not served in Boris Johnson's government, because the whole government is seen to be to some extent complicit in living with the low levels of integrity that we've witnessed over the past few months. For those who have been in government, Rishi Sunak stands a chance. The fact he was somewhat embattled in terms of his political standing, but the fact that he has wielded the dagger, he is just about the first senior figure out of the door, gives him a chance to say, look, I wouldn't put up with what the government is seeking to do. I also think that the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, Nadhim Zahawi, will also be a strong candidate. But at the moment, we really don't know. And there are two steps. First of all, you've got to be one of the top two candidates approved by Conservative members of Parliament. And then it goes out to a ballot of all Conservative Party members, about 100,000 of them. And it's very difficult to read their mood just at the moment.
Right. Well, Mr. Andrew Whitehead, thank you so much for joining us with your insights and analysis of the situation. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.